Hey, this is Gene. It's Friday before this weekend. A lot of big games for me personally. Miami and Florida State play. Normally, that would be a big, huge game. If Miami had been a little bit better this year, it would be a big at night top 10 type of thing. But they've lost games they probably shouldn't have lost. Um, and then we got Manchester United playing Luton. I think the Luton game is probably going to be harder than the Copenhagen game was. I thought we dominated Copenhagen. I think we deserved to win that game. Um, there are some issues I had how the coach managed that after we went down to 10 men. And I was very, very upset, obviously, as most Manchester United fans were when he got sent off. I thought Rashford was playing a very logical, rational type of game. Um, he was using his I guess basically his fame, his his aura to get players to come to him, and that allowed Hoyland and other players to be open. Clearly, what he did, it was not intentional. Um, I don't really have an issue with it 2 or 3 or 4 days later. The issue I have is now he's out for the rest of the group stages. And I mean, he hasn't been a big positive for us this year anyway. So it's possible we'll play better without him. But I would like to have him at Galatasaray. I think that having his threat to um, when they're pressing us, that we can throw the ball down the field and he might get to it and get a goal out of it. That's probably gone right now. Garnacho is not as quick as Rashford, but Rashford is not as quick as he used to be when he first came up either. So I think that the team played well, just very stupid individual errors. I just almost shocking when the fact that they scored 4 goals, and I don't think that they deserved any of them. I think that it's just our defending. I have no real explanation for it. You can't really blame the manager there because he had the exact team out there. When Evans was out there, they couldn't do anything to us. And for a lot of times in that game, they could not do anything to us. And every time we got the ball, we looked like he scored him. And nobody's talking about what happened. We were up 3-2, fortunate penalty, but they also had a fortunate penalty as well, so that kind of like washed out. When they were reeling with about 10, 11 minutes left in the game, we had a break, and Bruno was just sitting in the box, and he just waited and waited and waited. He didn't try to shot. He didn't shoot right away. He waited for McTominay, and then he gave him a bad pass. If he gives him a good pass there, I have a pretty good 50-50 that McTominay scores there, and it's 4-2, and this game's over, and we're all talking about how great that they did this after being down to 10 men, and the attitude around the team would be totally different. I just don't understand how we played the last 11, 12 minutes of that game that we ended up losing it. And these goals were just, I don't know. It's almost like, I mean, Delo actually looked at the player, then went back and looked for the ball, and now the ball's over his head. It's like he has to be smarter than that. You really need to be. And again, I don't really blame him. He's the one who's been paying every fucking game because all these other players are hurt. Now, you can say, why wasn't Reguilon not playing? I don't think he's played well back after he got injury. I don't think he's 100% back. But I think he would have been fine again in that game. And I think he could have probably brought him in with 20 minutes left. Maybe after we scored that goal, it'd be at 3-2. Even though at that time, Delo was playing fine. But if it's possible that Ten Hag could have saw that he was maybe getting tired or something like that, you could bring in Reguilon for the last 15 minutes. I haven't seen Reguilon give that. This is something that we do. Both him and Wan-Bissaka do the same thing. They lose the ball on their post, and guys get behind them. I think they think that they're so athletic they get back, and sometimes you can't. I think that there's a couple areas in that game. It's like we basically gave them that in a lot of ways. Copenhagen was not the better team on that game. Now, over the 2 games, they probably deserved something out of this. because they outplayed us in Old Trafford. Even though we had 4 or 5 really good chances in that game, we didn't play well. And of course, everybody's upset that they bring in Mount for the last 5 minutes. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But Mount didn't do anything. He didn't go out and try to cover that pass that ended up turning into a goal. He has to be running at him. And the issue that I have as a fan is seeing other players, other teams, just giving everything at the end of the game when they're trying to hold on to something. And there's times this year that we've just not really showed that. I remember last year against City, after we went up 2-1 in that game, nobody was going to allow anything to happen. At the end of that game against Liverpool at home, there was no way we were going to let anybody in, even though Salah got a goal in. But after that, they had no chance. We were not going to allow it to happen. And I just want to see that same type of fight at the end of the game. Now, again, they could be tired. I don't know. A lot of those players haven't played that much, so I don't think that's the issue. And that's not. I'm not in the stadium, but I didn't really feel the pressure of that stadium on top of the team at all. And I don't think the players from Copenhagen were. It's one of those weird games, you know. It's fine when you get beat. When City beat us at home, you got to say, okay, they're the best team. They deserve to win. But that game, we should have easily won that game. It should have been like 4 or 5-1. And, you know, people say, well, the first goal they scored was probably offside. It probably is. But if it's not looked at, they're going to call it. And they may not call it anyway. And yes, the Højlund thing that he got hit in the head with the elbow, nothing happened there. But again, I don't think it's really that important. I think that the Rashford thing is a 50-50 thing. But again, nobody on Copenhagen asked for it. And then VAR goes looking for it. That's the issue I have with VAR. And a lot of people online have been saying this recently, and I said it recently. VAR should only be used for certain things. It should be if the ball went across the line for a goal, clearly should be there. Offsides, if it's clear and obvious error. Not if your toenail is over, that's not offside to me. Okay, if as the lineman doesn't call it, and then they go back and the guy's off by half a yard, then it's not a goal. But if it's just seriously, if it's under like an inch or so, it should not be called, because you cannot. They don't have the technology to go back at the ball where he actually hits the ball and just do frame by frame right there when it actually came off of that foot, and then they can actually match it to when the guy made the run, because they can just move it by 1 inch or 1 frame, and then you're onside. And the next time you can be onside. So when it's that close, it's not clear and obvious. So if it's clear that the referee or the linesman just did not see one of the guy that was offside, and he's off by half a yard, then it should be talked off. But not when it's seriously. This is the thing that has to be done. And I think they did this in the VA. They did this in the World Cup. Because we can't. The technology does not allow you to go back to where the guy actually hits the ball for the pass and frame by frame to see when it actually comes off his foot. Because that little thing right there could change what somebody's offside or not, and you're destroying the game. And we're waiting, and can't really celebrate. Every time we score, I have to say, I have to wait. And I have to wait. Like, oh, it's okay, then I'm okay with it, right? I know it's like Garnacho's at Arsenal. That might be right there at the level where you'd say that he's offside. I thought he was offside from looking at from the lines or from the angles for the camera, but you can't really see from where the angle is. But that would be like the very close to where they'd be offside. Everything closer to that, you would never even look at, because it's not clear offsides. And certain things that could be looked at as red cards. So you could go back and look at Rashford's challenge. He's not even a challenge. And I get it. I understand why they do it. The problem is they're not consistent. They're not consistency with it, and the VAR is the one that's driving all this. If the on-field ref doesn't see it, and then all of a sudden he gets something in his ear, that means that these guys are going back, and what they do is go back 5, 6 seconds before, did anything happen? Anything happen? And this is all they're doing. When nobody on the other team is asking for it, the player on the ground is not asking for it. It's like, and again, it's just unfortunate for Rashford because he's been going through some stuff as far as form anyway. But I personally think that this game against Luton will be a harder game than it was against Copenhagen. I watched them play Liverpool, and they should have beat Liverpool. And that little stadium they play in is everybody's right on top of you. The environment's going to be 10 times worse than it was in Copenhagen. And obviously, when we go Galatasaray, I feel bad for Marcus. But again, if we crash out of Europe, that's fine. I don't necessarily want to go to the Europa League. However, if we can't get to top 4, then we have to win that league, and that means that's Liverpool, to get to the Champions League. Maybe that's just not going to happen this year. Maybe it's just better if we don't play in any competitions other than FA Cup and the Premiership, and get our routines together. And that's why I want to talk about that as well. I think that the fact he had basically the same team in there, that we looked more in sync. And I think if he gets the players that he wants, his top 11 to play 2 or 3 games in a row, I think we're going to be fine. I really do. But we got to get past the mentality of something goes bad against us that we can't recover from it. And again, I don't think people are saying that our mentality went down, that our heads dropped, that we down tools. I didn't really see that. What I saw is that just crazy things happened in that game. A game that we dominated pretty much the entire game. Even when we were down to 1, once we came out the second half, we dominated the game. And they allowed it to happen, which is fine. And they allowed us to hold on to the ball, and they want to get us on the break, and that's their game plan. But they didn't do anything. And then I just don't understand it after we scored, that after about 4 minutes after that, we just gave up something just stupid. And then I'm not used to seeing Manchester United just do that at the end of the game when we crawled back in and got in front of it. And I think the reason we have to actually call out one player, and it has to be Varane. His attitude when he came onto the field was nauseating, and we scored 2 goals. They scored 2 goals when he was in the game. He's clearly lost and should not start with that attitude. I hoped when he came out in the second half that he would change, and he kind of did, but it seemed like he became an asshole at the end of the game as well. He wouldn't defend the crosses, and it was basically Maguire had to get all the head. They shouldn't have scored the first goal. Anyway, I could talk about it forever, and I got to get going. We got to leave here in a minute. Yeah. But anyway, tell me what you think in the comments, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.